So we're heading into the month of June. Well, get ready for a ride, like a roller coaster ride, because if you don't think things are volatile enough now, it's just going to get worse. We're going to start off the month in a full moon. Now the sun has been in Gemini, sitting right next to the unpredictable planet of Uranus. The volatility of that energy is very high. And then there's going to be a full moon in Sagittarius right at the first of the month, which creates this great opposition and conflict because full moons are conflict. And anyone that's born under a full moon is going to have karma from the past of a lot of conflict in their past life and their relationships. So essentially, when you come into this new life, there's going to be conflict in your childhood between the parents. And this is a common dynamic because that's the nature of what an opposition is, us versus them. Now, this whole thing about the Sun and Uranus together opposing Sagittarian moon, I can't, and I don't want to normally get political in these videos, but I can't help but do it this time because Donald Trump's chart has this signature in it. His birth chart has the Sun conjunct Uranus in opposition to a Sagittarian moon. And so he is the avatar of what this represents in a human being. And so it's all about communication. It's all about conflict. It's an us versus them. And someone who is going to be battling all the time in their views and in everything and how they communicate. So, and it changes rapidly and constantly. And it's interesting that in his own life, he has had a competition television show. So he is a communicator, a grand communicator, and a very powerful pole. And so, but he's unpredictable in his communication. He says one thing one day and something else another, but it's never, you never know what he's going to say next. And he has a hard time not communicating. Sometimes he says things he shouldn't say. But essentially, when you look at that in our own lives, and we're going to this energy, it's how we're going to be dealing with our communication and how we deal with the volatility that this month represents. Now, Sagittarius in Gemini represents sports. Well, the first 2 weeks of this month is all about sports. We're being bombarded by sporting events and information regarding them. And I made a list just to say how prolific this is because we have tennis going on right now with the French Open. In golf, we have the US Open coming up. We have the NBA playoffs. In hockey, we have the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we have the FIFA World Cup. And we have the UFC event at the White House coming up. All of this in the next 2 weeks. This is how this whole month is going to be. Now, it can be very exciting. It's overwhelming, to be honest with you. But at the same time, this volatility and this excitement can create a lot of disruption. And we know, right away, I mean, we just saw, I think yesterday or last night, we saw, the Knicks go to the finals. And look what happened in New York. Look at the amount of people that were just screaming and yelling and so excited. It gets scary. And I think the whole energy kind of feels that way. So we need to be careful. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect others around you. If you're going to events, if you're going to bars or sporting events, that you just don't get out of control. And I kind of get the visual of being put into a roller coaster and forgetting to put on the buckle and the belt. And you just go flying out, and that's not a good thing. So you gotta be very self-aware during this time in these events that we're going to experience. And so, I also want to talk about Gemini and Sagittarian in terms of their opposition, because Gemini is the gatherer of information, and Sagittarius is the reality of what the information means. So in other words, you have the student in the class learning something, and then you have the professor teaching what it is and what you need to know about it, what is real and what is the truth. And this is why we have issues with information and truth. And so you have to watch where you get your information, because that seems to be an issue now with all our social media dynamics that we're dealing with. And so go to the information where they show both sides of everything. And it's just not the one you want to hear or the one that you want to belong to. You have to not take sides. You have to look at both sides. There are winners and losers in all arguments. And, it's how you respond to the loss. Because not everybody wins. People lose. And there's a gracious way to lose and an ungracious way to lose. And so you have to, once again, sort of approach this thing with a reasonable mind. And it is a war energy, because when we look at Gemini and Sagittarian, it is, a masculine energy. And we're in this generally overall. And so these signs really turn up the heat and the fire. And sports can do that. I mean, it's very exciting. I actually laughed because watching the French Open, the number one player got knocked out by the heat. And so it's just how symbology works in astrology. But something else that goes on in the first 2 weeks is that Mercury also moves into a new sign, and it's turning into the sign of Cancer. And this is, again, emotional. How we communicate is going to be very emotional. So, watch how your emotions get out of hand because of how you're communicating about how you have to win the argument, how you have to win. I know the information. You don't know what you know. Only I know. We hear this a lot. We hear this a lot from Trump. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you hear. And that's just a dynamic of somebody who cannot lose. They need to win. So don't be stubborn and feel like you're going to get through to them. When I look at both those signs and their nature, it's so interesting because a Gemini, that if you've got a child that's a Gemini, they need to be heard. That's the child that's, very vocal and very all over the place. It's just like going from one thing to another, but they want to get heard. And so what they tend to do is have two ways to do this. And one is to raise their volume. So all of a sudden they're yelling because no one's listening. And the other thing is when they get very emotional, they do the opposite. They actually will shut down, go to the room and shut the door so you can't get to them. So I'm not going to listen to you, because you won't listen to me. It's a very, again, opposition. So in Sagittarius, Sagittarians have to win. And when Trump's moon in Sagittarius, it's an emotional need and security device for him at a very deep level. He cannot lose. It's an emotional thing, not a mental thing. So, this is why, Sagittarians, the winning is the point. And having the right answer and having the truth being, this is how it is. Well, again, it's subjective because it's how you come to that conclusion. As an astrologer, there's many conclusions to different types of planets and signs and energy, but they all essentially are going to come to a conclusion that's conceptually the same. So, try and look at the big picture of the issue. Is this something that you need to win at? Or is this something that you need to force upon someone else? And if you acquiesce, does it mean you're a loser or that, things don't matter to you? Don't get into a push and pull with somebody else, because the first 2 weeks of this month is a very, very strong push and pull. And we're trying to come together. And we're trying to find out where we want to be as a collective and where we are in our personal lives. But this month, the first 2 weeks of this month, is really going to test us. So be safe out there, be safe for others. And I'm going to do another video separate from this, just talking about the nature of the Gemini and the Sagittarian to get more of an impact so you can navigate this. Especially if you have those signs in family and friends and understand them. But this will be a 2-week video. I'll do another one for the second half of the month. So, thanks for listening. Subscribe if you like. And I just want to warn everybody because this seems to be a lot. So take care and take care of yourself.